Hello, Beacon Heights students. I'm Mrs. Dale, and this is Lesson 6. Do you remember last week we started with a few Halloween songs? I'd like to review those with you now. The first song we'll sing is Halloween Cat. Halloween cat, Halloween cat, why do you mew and mew like that? Neither I nor the moon like your tune. Scat, Halloween cat. Halloween cat, Halloween cat, why do you mew and mew like that? Neither I nor the moon like your tune. Scat, Halloween cat. Very nice. I'm glad you remembered that one. If I were a witch. If I were a witch, I'd laugh, hee hee hee. If I were a cat, I'd meow, meow. If I were a ghost, I'd groan with my mouse, and I'd scare everybody now. One more time. If I were a witch, I'd laugh, hee hee hee. If I were a cat, I'd meow, meow. If I were a ghost, I'd groan with my mouse, and I'd scare everybody now. That was awesome. I have one more song for you today. It's called Goblin's Ride. Let's review the words. All around the room, riding on a broom, here and there, everywhere, goblins come. Some are riding bats, some are riding cats. Gracious me, I can see witches' hats. Now they circle faster as they shout with glee. They are very happy, for they ride so free. Swish around and swish about and up and down. Then they leave and gallop over town. And then we go back to the top. Okay, I'm going to play the piano and sing, and you will sing with me. Thank you. Ready, begin. All around the room, riding on a broom. Here and there, everywhere, goblins come. Some are riding bats, some are riding cats. Gracious me, I can see witches' hats. Now they circle faster as they shout with glee. They are very happy, for they ride so free. Swish around and swish about and up and down. Then they leave and gallop over town. All around the room, riding on a broom. Here and there, everywhere, goblins come. Some are riding bats, some are riding cats. Gracious me, I can see witches' hats. Do you remember last week we talked about a composer named Robert Schumann? Schumann was born in 1810. Today I want to tell you about another composer who was also born in 1810. His name was Frederic Chopin. Chopin is spelled like this. It looks like Chopin, but you say Chopin. So Frederic Chopin was born in 1810 in a small town near Warsaw, Poland. His father, a teacher, was French, and his mother was Polish. Chopin grew up in a cultured, educated family. Chopin was the second child and only son. The children were all given music lessons. When tiny Frederic Chopin heard music, he would burst into tears to the great distress of his parents, who feared that he hated it. It was only when he began to pick out little tunes on the piano that they realized he was weeping tears of joy. When Chopin was 6 years old, he began studying piano with Albert Zwini, and he was only 8 years old. While still young, Chopin performed in many German cities. Chopin developed a passionate love for Poland. When he left Poland, he took with him a silver goblet filled with Polish soil. In 1822, Joseph Elsner, head of the Warsaw Conservatory, became Chopin's teacher in composition. Elsner quickly recognized his students' unusual talent. Chopin remained close friends with Elsner throughout his life. In 1829, Chopin began a concert tour to London by way of Vienna, Munich, and Paris. That he did not ever go through London, though. At this time, the Russians invaded Warsaw, making it difficult for Chopin to return to his native Poland. Chopin remained in Paris the rest of his life, where he became friends with other famous musicians. When the German Nazis attacked Poland, Chopin's music became the symbol of national resistance. The last music heard before the Nazis took over Poland were the first 11 notes of Chopin's Polonaise in A major, played on the xylophone from the Warsaw radio. Let's take a listen. And I wanted to tell you what a Polonaise is. It's a Polish dance, and it's got a march in it. So let's take a listen to that now. I remember my twin sister learning to play this, and it took so much effort and energy. Lots of octaves in this piece. It takes big hands to play all the chords. Very triumphant feeling. Chopin mainly wrote music for the piano. And so all his piano works are quite large and take lots of energy. Does this excite you? It excites me. I love it. It's so energetic. This section's a little bit different, and then we'll get back to the main theme. There we go. It's building. Very triumphant. You can hear all those octave chords. Okay, so I think you have the idea of what this song is like. So Chopin, like I said, wrote music primarily for the piano. His works were full of lovely melodies and real intense harmonies. His lively, happy mazurkas and polonaises expressed his love for his native land, Poland. And mazurkas and polonaises are dances, like I said earlier. Chopin preferred to perform for small gatherings of friends and for society people in private homes. Because he was kind of shy, he preferred smaller groups. In 1839, Robert Schumann wrote a glowing review of some of Chopin's music by saying, "Hats off, gentlemen, a new genius." Chopin preferred to compose and teach rather than perform. In 1848, Chopin traveled to England and Scotland, giving concerts to raise money for the Polish war refugees. It was the worst possible climate for his fragile health. Chopin returned to Paris critically ill. He died of tuberculosis on October 17, 1849, at the young age of just 39. And that's one of our tragedies. He was born in 1810 and died in 1849. He only had 39 short years, but he wrote remarkable music. Now I would like to read Chopin from Famous Children by Anne Racklin. Stand up, Frederic. Shake hands with Mr. Zweeney. He is your new piano teacher. Nicholas Chopin's voice was kind but firm, and his little 6-year-old son jumped to his feet. He loved playing the piano. His mother had been giving him music lessons since he was 3, but now here was his new teacher. What would he be like? Frederic held out his hand and looked at Albert Sweeney. What a strange-looking man. He had a huge purple nose, and as he smiled at the little boy, Frederic saw that some of his teeth were missing. On his head was an untidy blonde wig, which had slipped to one side. He wore yellow trousers and a yellow coat, but they were different yellows. Frederic tried hard not to laugh when he saw Mr. Sweeney's big boots. This curious man used his boots as a purse, and there was money sticking out of the top. Mr. Sweeney took off his frayed old cloak and sat down at the side of the piano. "All right, Frederic," he said, "let me hear you play the piano." Frederic soon forgot how odd his teacher looked, for his music lessons were fascinating. He even got used to the strange smells. Mr. Sweeney took snuff and scattered the strong powder everywhere, in his boots, on his cravat, and especially on his vest. Mr. Sweeney didn't believe in bathing either. Frederic adored Mr. Sweeney. The boy was 6 years old and his teacher 60, but they were soon firm friends. It seemed to the Chopins that Frederic's music lessons never ended, for Mr. Sweeney was so pleased with the little boy's progress that he stayed for hours, eating most of his meals with the family. As soon as each meal was over, Frederic raced back to the grand piano. Frederic had 3 sisters, Louise, Isabella, and Amelia. Their father was French. He had traveled to Poland as a young man and was now housemaster of a boarding school in the Casimir Palace. His wife, Justina, was the housekeeper and looked after the pupils. It was vacation time, and Frederic was curled up in a chair with a piece of chocolate and a book. "Father said we are going to the woods today," announced Louise. Frederic loved going to the woods. It only took 15 minutes by carriage. Soon they were there, picking strawberries and hunting for mushrooms. One evening, Frederic was reading aloud to the family when Mr. Sweeney strode into the house. "Guess what I've got here," he said. With a flourish, he pulled out a printed sheet of music. Mr. Chopin leapt up and took a look. "Why, Frederic," he exclaimed, "it's your Polish dance. It says Polonaise in G minor by Frederic Chopin." His father was beaming with pride. Soon everyone in Warsaw was talking about the little Chopin boy, only 7 years old and composing. There was even an article in the Warsaw Review about him. It said, "The composer of this Polish dance is the son of Nicholas Chopin, who teaches French and literature at the Lyceum School. The boy, who is only 7, is a real musical genius. Not only does he play the most difficult piano pieces, but he also composes dances in a most outstanding way." Now, every day brought invitations. Mr. Sweetie boasted to everyone about his clever pupil and made sure that all the important families in Warsaw read the newspaper article. Soon every princess and countess wanted little Frederic to play at their parties. Mr. Chopin and Mr. Sweetie accompanied Frederic, who was not shy at all. He enjoyed playing for the elegant ladies. Just before his 8th birthday, Frederic gave his first concert in public. It was February 24th, 1818. Wrapped in their beautiful cloaks, the most important people in Warsaw arrived by sleigh at the Radziwill Palace. Everyone clapped their hands as Frederic, dressed in a black velvet jacket with a huge white lace collar and short trousers with white stockings, walked onto the stage. Frederic's fingers flew over the keys. The music by the Polish composer Gierwitz was very difficult, and the audience listened spellbound. At the end, they jumped to their feet and applauded. Frederic slid off the piano stool and bowed. When he arrived home, his mother asked, "How did you get on, Frederic? What did they like best?" "The white collar you made for me," came the unexpected reply. At that time, the Grand Duke Constantine ruled over Poland. He came from Russia and was a very cruel and bad-tempered man. Everyone was frightened of him. Sometimes he would leap into his carriage and race through the streets of Warsaw, firing his pistol in the air. The Grand Duke heard about Frederic and often sent his carriage to bring the little boy to the Belvedere Palace to play for him. Sometimes the Grand Duke was in a terrible rage when Frederic arrived, but as soon as the boy began to play the piano, the Duke would calm down, soothed by his music. Frederic often composed while he was playing for the Grand Duke. One day he began to create a new piece, his eyes raised to the ceiling. "What are you looking up there for?" barked the irritable Duke. "Are the notes written on the ceiling?" Frederic took no notice and continued composing. The piece that Frederic was composing was a military march. The Grand Duke began to relax. Soon he was smiling. Then he was marching up and down the drawing room, beating time to the music. "Left, right, left, right. I like this march," he sang. He gave orders for it to be arranged for a huge military band. Frederic was very proud when he saw the soldiers marching to his music. Frederic was very thin, and the doctor decided that he should have a vacation in the country. Dominique, one of his school friends, invited him to stay in a lovely country village northwest of Warsaw. Instead of sending letters home, Frederic wrote a newspaper describing all his vacation adventures. The newspaper was called the Village Courier. A page from the Village Courier. "We heard some important news today. The turkey laid its eggs behind the pantry. Yesterday, the cat crept into a cupboard and broke a bottle of fruit juice. Luckily, it was the smallest bottle. Today, one of the hens has gone lame, and a drake had a fight with a goose." Frederic Chopin could draw almost as well as he could play the piano. One day during a lesson at school, Frederic passed around his drawing of the teacher. It was a cartoon that made the master look very ugly. "Give me that piece of paper. Who drew this?" The teacher was angry. Frederic confessed and expected to be punished, but later that evening the drawing was returned with the words, "Well drawn," on the back. Frederic Chopin became a great pianist and composed some of the most important music for the piano, including 27 etudes, 25 preludes, 19 nocturnes, 52 mazurkas, 4 impromptus, and 2 piano concertos. Some of his pieces had nicknames. The Minute Waltz was supposed to describe a dog chasing its tail. The Raindrop Prelude sounds like the pitter-patter of the rain on a roof. The Cat Waltz recalls the day when Chopin's cat jumped onto the keyboard and ran up and down. So, before we go outside to dance to Chopin's Minute Waltz, I would like to tell you a few things about the minute waltz. So the minute waltz actually doesn't just take a minute. It takes 90 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how fast the performer plays it. And it was written just 2 years before Chopin died. It's one of the most famous tunes that he left with us. This waltz was first known as the Waltz of the Little Dog because Chopin watched a little dog actually chasing his tail while he was writing this music. So we're going to go outside now and do some action to the Minute Waltz by Frederic Chopin. Now we're outside, students, so stand up because we're going to move. The Minute Waltz goes quite quickly, and so stay with me. Get ready to move. Thank you for joining me today, Beacon Heights students. I hope you are enjoying your music classes. See you next time. Take care.